This one for me has slightly more, has a little bit of a gap here.
Yeah.
Just remove some material, so when we clamp it, it will fit more snug.
Violin Making and Repair is the only 3-year program we have here at North Bennet Street School.
So the curve will be fitting better.
They start from scratch with no required skills. The first several weeks is just about tools, sharpening tools, and the materials that are used in violin making.
I am gouging out the channel on my cello plate so that I can get ready for purfling. Purfling is the white and black inlay that goes around the edge. It's kind of a decorative feature, but it also helps if the instrument were to get a crack that started on the edge. The crack would stop at the inlay and not go into the instrument.
During the course of the 3 years, they make 6 violins, a viola, and a cello. We don't teach bow making. We really stick to violins, violas, and cellos and similar stringed instruments.
We have scans of the actual molds that Stradivari used. At different points of his life, he used different molds. So this particular mold is one of the larger of the Stradivari molds that he used. And it's actually the exact same size, and we will actually take a finished measurement of the back plate, which is a standard way to measure a violin. And we try to get it to within usually 1/10 of a millimeter as to what Stradivari had. It has a great sound. All the ratios, and proportions are very classical. They're really good.
I'm preparing purfling to fit the C-bout of my viola. You just use a small amount of moisture, and I'm using a bending iron, bending the purfling to the shape of the C-bout. You can see the one I did from a little bit earlier. I did this C-bout and the lower bout here.
Growing up, my father owned a violin rental shop. When I was 14, I started working for him in his shop in the summers and school breaks. I ended up deciding to go into music, and I got my bachelor's of music in piano. In the meantime, my dad passed away and I inherited the shop. First, I wasn't sure if I was going to keep it or not, and I held on to it until I graduated school. And then I took some repair courses, and it was amazing. I fell in love with it. The shop's still open in New Jersey. Hopefully I'll be able to make a go of it after I finish school here.
Modern violin making is really very good, but there is still a prejudice in the playing community that you can't get any better than the old instruments. Part of why players like old instruments is because the instruments have history, and especially the great instruments. Like a player can say, well, it went to this virtuoso and it went to that virtuoso, and now I get to play it. And so I think that players probably really like the ancestry and that they feel connected to the past world of music if they have a great old instrument. There is some research going on about what makes instruments good instruments, and there's a group of people using an MRI machine on a violin to take a scan, and then they have made movies where you are watching as the camera moves through the instrument. You can see the thicknesses of the plates and how they vary, and you can see like when the corners come in, and you can see the sound post, and you can see all of these things. It's really interesting.
The placement of the F-holes is really important. The size of the F-holes is really important. You can actually take this section here, and with the wood that's cut away, it enables the wood to flex. And this is probably the most important part of the sounding point of the instrument.
If they don't have a background in violin or stringed instruments, we give them lessons because we feel that they need to have at least a rudimentary ability to play the instrument for them to be good makers.
In our modern world, people don't think about where things come from. People don't think about how they're made. People don't think about even where their food comes from. And it's so nice to be able to make something and know that I made it from the beginning to end, and like, this is where it came from, and this is how I got there. And I think there's a lot of value in that. It gives you a sense of accomplishment.
Violin making, for all these little things, I think you have to be just intuitive, and just kind of take things on the way you feel about them.
I had no idea how difficult it was before I started school. You start with a chunk of wood. In the end, you end up with a violin. I mean, that's amazing. How does that work? I mean, it's almost like magic.
"'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift